Hi, this is Sana from Ready and Thriving. There's a storm on its way, and around here that means it's very likely that the power will go out, and they've warned us it may go out for several days. So I want to prepare ahead while we still have power to make some food that will last us through that time. Now, of course, we have things in our pantry that would keep us safe and sound, but because we have the time ahead, we can make something that will seem like a nice, substantial meal. And that today will be turnovers, and particularly a savory turnover. I'm going to make ham and cheese turnovers, really nice, but you could put whatever it is that you'd like to have. And really the main trick here is that turnovers will last at room temperature for a couple of days. And that way you can have good hearty meal for lunch and dinners whenever it is that you need it, even during a power outage. This really comes from, the tradition of, say, miners or farmers going out into the field with something wrapped up in pastry, some meat wrapped up in pastry, and that is a good shelf-stable and also really hearty lunch. So that's what we'll make today. And we're going to make it super easy because time is short. The storm is coming today. So I've just got some puff pastry, which I always keep in the freezer, and then I just popped it out to defrost. And it has in it 2 sheets already, which is really great. But if you had other puff pastry, basically just roll it out to a square that's like a foot by a foot or somewhere between 20-30 centimeters. It doesn't have to be precise. What we want to do is we'll try to make 8 out of these 2. So we'll cut them and then make some smaller ones. For the last power outage, I made quite large ones, which also were a great thing. But this time I'll be a little bit more flexible we could have 2 for a meal, that's a bigger meal, and some for a smaller meal. So, very easy. We will just cut these into 4s, first of all. So now we've got 4 equal squares in each sheet. And because these are going to flip over like this, we want to just put a little bit of our fillings right in that little pocket and make sure that there's enough room to seal it around, because that's really the ticket for why it is shelf stable, why it will last at room temperature should you need it to. So now we just start to put in the fillings. We will start with a little bit of mustard. And I'm just using Dijon here, but again, remember, you can make this with whatever it is that are your favorite ingredients. I've decided to mix ham, cheese, a little bit of mustard, and then in my egg wash I'm going to add kind of some oniony flavors as well to it, just to add that little extra punch. Emergency food doesn't have to be boring, right? We want this to really feel like as comfortable as possible, that we are at home and have everything that we need. So use whatever you have on hand. I have this really nice, super fine lunch meat. Makes it really nice and easy to make. And given this is something that comes up unexpectedly, as we just got the storm watch, really it is what's ever in your pantry, what's ever in your fridge. Now is also a good time to clear that out, use it up. Think about also, if you think it's going to be a long power outage, what is it that might not last through that time? So is there a chicken that you should cook up or something like that, so that you can use it and not waste food. And then also you can do the same sort of trick with it in that you can put it into the turnovers and then keep it shelf stable. So that's a really good tip. I know after this I will also be doing a little bit of cooking. You may see we've also got a pot on here that we're just going to bake some bread. So that's also another thing that we'll have on hand and ready during that storm. So nice to just have a few hours before that storm to know that you can cook some things up and then feel like, hey, this is almost an adventure and not suffer at all without having power. So we've got the mustard, we've got our ham, and now I'll just take crusty cheese, grabbing some real cheese that is already grated, so it does make it easy, and just going to pile that on. Again, the types of quantities that you like, but I'm making smaller ones, and we do have to fold it over, so keep that in mind. We need it to seal. That is the key. So do not overfill at this point, even though we love cheese. I will resist the temptation to put on far too much. Okay, so now we've got all the inside ingredients actually done, lickety-split, right? You saw that basically live. Now we'll do the egg wash. Egg wash sounds fancy, but particularly really super simple, even for something like this, right? It's an egg. And I just got a little bit of shell in there, and top tip, use the shell itself to take it out, because there's almost like a magnetic quality of a shell to find its mate. Don't ask me why, but it's really lovely and helps to get that out of there. So all set. Now I'm going to actually flavor this as well. I've got some onion powder here, which I thought would be nice with the ham and cheese. Now I've got some chives. I'm just going to put those in. There we go. Add a little green on there. I just thought it would make it seem less like, oh my gosh, this is survival food. It'll look really super nice. Now the reason I'm doing this before I fold these up is because I want to now mix all that together, and I want to get a really good seal on these so that they can stay really nice and closed. So that little, that centimeter, that ½ inch that I left on the side, I'm now going to just basically paint that and brush that with the eggs, and that'll help to seal it up while it's cooking. So get that going. Okay. So as you say, when an emergency comes, you don't want to be one of the folks who has to run out to the store and handle any types of emergency things there, all the chaos that's going on there. Don't need that. We want to already have these things on hand. So one of the key things that I always keep in my freezer is some puff pastry, because it is something then that I can use whatever else I have, and I can make a wonderful meal. So I alluded to that we had a power outage earlier this year. This past summer I had a power outage that was 4 days, and that was 4 days for myself, and it was up to 2 weeks for some of my neighbors. You'd think we live in some sort of really out of the way place, but not really. These things happen when storms hit. So what was great was my kind of 2 big survival things where I had everything on hand. I was able to have these as meals together with some of the other things I had in my pantry. But then also, of course, making good friends with a neighbor who had a way to make coffee. So those were the things that really saved me during that time, and it was just fantastic. So now what you can see here is that I am folding these over, and we're sealing those now. So you can see the kind of bump from the filling, and we've got here the sealed, and the shape is of a nice triangle. So I'll just finish that up, and then I am pushing it down already to seal with that egg wash. But we will do a little bit more than that. I really want to make sure that that's well sealed, so I push that down. Now, there is a tradition of crimping in some areas, particularly in the UK. They have wonderful different crimping techniques that are just fantastic. Kind of a more American tradition is just grabbing a fork and really pinching that down along the side. It makes that very familiar, perhaps pie crust look, and even is in sold pastry that you might find in the US. So it makes a really nice crimping shape here, and it really is fully sealed. I'm going to go ahead and set those already on my prepared baking sheets. Now, what I've done to prepare my baking sheets is very simple. I grabbed them and then I put them, I had some silicone mats, and I've got two different types here. Just thought I'd experiment with which one works better, but basically a silicone mat, parchment paper, or even just grease down your baking sheets so they don't stick. And that's all you need. This is something you can do lickety-split in an emergency or in a short period of time. So 30 minutes, you can see the full recipe on readyandthriving.com. But basically 30 minutes and this is it. This one's not quite sealing because I've got a little bit of that mustard squished out. So I'm going to then do more of a crimping technique that you might see in the UK, just to make sure that one's really sealed. The others look like they're just fine, but this one I did overfill a little bit. So no problem. We'll do a little crimp that you might see in more of a UK type of environment. Makes it a little bit smaller, but actually it's a little prettier too. So here we go. I'm just putting these now onto two pans. Now we'll just egg wash the tops now. Now this is kind of less important for the sealing process, but this is for the psychological bit. It makes it brown so beautifully. It makes them look so lovely. Just having a little bit of egg on there will make it turn golden brown. Will help you know when it's ready as well, because as soon as it's really nice and golden brown, then you'll know to bring them out. And also, since I've put those little chives in, or you could, you know, if you've got parsley or anything like that, a little bit of green on top just makes it look even more inviting and tempting. So I'm just going to finish that up, get these fully covered. And I am using puff pastry, and some of you may know that when you put an egg wash on puff pastry, often it will recede and kind of bring its puffing potential down. That's totally fine for these, because what we're trying to do here is actually keep them nicely sealed, so it's not a problem. But also, we're not going to miss having some of those wonderful flaky layers, because I am just putting this on the top and on that sealed area. So it will be allowed to puff up from those bottom sheets, and even that top sheet internally, you'll still get all those wonderful layers. The oven's already preheated, so we'll just pop these in now for 20 minutes into our preheated oven, 425 Fahrenheit. The reason I use the middle shelf is really that is the most consistent cooking temperature inside there. And these, we do want to cook the bottom and the top very nicely. Too far up, we might kind of fry those eggs a bit and overcook the top. Too far down, same thing might happen with the bottom. Those pans get hot and then the bottom gets a little too hot. So middle is perfect, and I was able to fit both those pans right in the center. So now 20 minutes, and then we'll pull those out and see how they look. And then we'll be able to have food for the next few days, real nice hearty food to supplement other things that we have in our emergency pantry, and we won't feel like we're suffering even with the power out during a pretty strong and long storm. All right, so just pulled those out of the oven. I have some on the cooling rack already, and just look at those, nice and brown, nice and sealed, and even nice and puffy from that wonderful puff pastry. Here's the one that I crimped, and that looks also very pretty and did stay sealed, so that's great. That's what we wanted. Using these silicone mats helps to get them off. And now, just putting the rest onto the cooling sheet. What I'll do from this now is I'll let them cool to room temperature. I will then go ahead and pop them into the refrigerator and try to get as much from the refrigerator as possible. If the power goes out though, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm still going to keep them in the refrigerator. It's a little bit cooler in there, and so we'll just keep them in there. But again, they are just fine at room temperature, and they will last a few days for you. Nice and safe and tasty, and something that actually helps you during an emergency not only survive, but to thrive. For more emergency preparedness and pantry cooking ideas, please go to readyandthriving.com.